Hi everyone, welcome back to Stereo Niche. I'm Scott Schneider. Hey, this week it's the Marantz 2275. Stick around. All right, so thanks for sticking around. The 2275 from Marantz. Now, if you are following along and have been a collector and a vintage audio enthusiast for a while, it's not a new unit to you at all. In fact, I would dare say that in probably a large number of top 5 vintage receivers lists, it probably is in there, or at least a unit very close to it. The Marantz has always, since its outset, been considered a premium brand, and all of the models from the 70s, very collectible, very highly sought after. The 2275 just is in the middle there. It has just enough power and just enough features that will satisfy really just about any requirements. So it's very much sought after, in addition to the 2270, which was its predecessor. So Marantz started in 1958. Back then, of course, that was the tube era, and they had very nice tube gear, amps, tube amps, etc., preamps, and moved into the 60s and then transitioned into transistors. And one of the things I wanted to point out is that if you look at the Marantz gear from the transistor era, all the way from the mid-60s through 1980, there was a continuation of the design aesthetic that was, from beginning to end. And I think that it was very much recognized by the consumer. They were able to very quickly look at it and go, oh yeah, that's a Marantz. For one, it had a unique font. And who used the word font, before the advent of computers? Unless you were in the publishing industry, it's probably not a term many of us used. But it was a unique font. It stood out, made it look different than any other manufacturer. Who had a horizontal, turning wheel here for the tuner? Definitely a Marantz thing, and they stood out from the crowd. The sliding, balance knob in the middle. I mean, obviously it just looks like it's in the right place, and it seems obvious. You move it to this direction, you're going to move the sound this way. You move it the other way, you're going to move your sound to the right side. Just made sense, and those features, carried itself all the way through for the majority of the line. And I think that was part of what helped them gain that sort of that consumer confidence, if you will, that status of, yeah, one day, I might own a Marantz, that sort of feeling. And they were highly successful. I think they were, I'm not sure of numbers. I wish I had some sales revenue numbers, but I'm sure they ranked up there neck and neck with Pioneer. Pioneer probably got them on volume, but they probably got them on, being a little bit more of a premium, and consumers willing to pay a little bit more. Just a guess on my part. I don't have any numbers to back that up. But all the Marantzes are collectible from this era. They sound great. They perform very well. Built like a tank, literally. You can certainly pick up any other receiver, and they are heavy, but the Marantz is solid. It doesn't lean one way or another. Another feeling out where the transform is, it just from, either side, it feels well balanced, just feels like it's, completely filled in the internals. They're very, solidly built units. So I guess that's pretty much it. I just wanted to do an opening and talk a little bit about, Marantz in general. So now we'll move into the up close shots here, give you a real good close look at it. And then at the end, I'll come back, do a review of the features, and we'll give it a points ranking and see where it lands. So see you soon. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed the up-close view there and got to see it. It's a very impressive unit, both from the front and the back. I think they're very well designed all the way around. So let's look at the features and run through and see what how it adds up as far as points. Before I get there, so confirming years of manufacture, it was manufactured from 74 to 76. I think earlier I had said it might have been 75, but that was years of manufacture. MSRP, I have 650. I think I may have seen somewhere it may have been 600, but anywhere 600 to 650 was about the MSRP for it. Okay, so moving into the ratings. As I mentioned, the 2275 is 75 watts. So for 75 watts, we get 15 points. And if you've seen my other videos, you're familiar with that. One of the features I always look for is if the receiver can handle a 4-ohm speaker. Now, kind of interesting for this model. The manual in one place mentions that to not hook up more than 2 4-ohm speakers. It doesn't have an actual spec for it, but it does say that you can hook up 4-ohm speakers. So that got me to looking around a little more. And the information that I found was that the 2270, the predecessor to this one, could not handle and was not rated at 4-ohm, but the 2275 is. So even though it didn't really spell that out in the manual, I went with that. It does say it does reference it, so I gave it 30 points for being able to handle at least one set of speakers, and that which is normal. Most receivers cannot handle two sets of 4-ohm speakers. So I just want to point that out. But so it can handle 4-ohm speakers. For that, it gets 30 points. Moving into phonos, it has one phono connection, so it gets 10 points for that. Looking at auxiliary and tape, has one auxiliary, 2 tapes, 10 points each, 30 points. Does have the cool balance slider, which is quite unique. We talked about that earlier. 5 points for that. Loudness switch has a loudness switch, so it gets 5 points. And then, as I mentioned, it does have a lot of features, and so a lot of tone control here. But it does have a tone defeat, which is a very nice thing to have. Gets 10 points. Has a bass, mid, and treble controls, which was same as the Kenwood in the last review that I did. Not as common to get that mid, so that's why I wanted to point it out. So anyway, 5 points each for the bass, mid, and treble. Has also a high-low filter switch, so that also gets 10 points. Moving on, doesn't have power meters, but you have to go up the chain to get that. It does have pre-out amp in connections on the back, so 20 points for that. Wood cabinet. I've been giving points for wood cabinets, although ironically I realized I wasn't putting that on the chart, but I was giving it the points. And I wanted to say that although it's optional for all the Marantzes, to me, I'm a sucker for wood veneers, and I think one of the things that makes the 80s not so desirable for many of us is that they eliminated the wood case, the wood cabinet, for the most part. And I think that's partially what makes us desire some of this older gear, and why there's sort of a real demarcation line of 1980, because it seemed like the industry got together and said, hey, yeah, no more wood cabinets, but to me, it highlights that it was meant to be seen in the room. And it was meant to be blended in with your furniture. And that's why it had wood veneer. And so that's, for me, that's an important feature. So in the case of the Marantz, although it is optional, if you have a wood case, I gave it 20 more points. Into AC plugs and connections, has one switched, one unswitched, gets 10 points, 5 points respectively. And then number of speaker sets, it will handle 2 sets of speakers. That would be 2 8-ohm sets if you're going to run them together. 1 set of 4-ohm at any one time. So it gets 10 points each for each connection. That's 20 points. And if you're keeping up with the numbers there, a total of 205 points. which is a little higher than the majority of them, I believe. I think most of the receivers, most of the sort of average mid-level receivers, I think will be under 200. So this, just edges out, over the 200 point mark, which is, not really surprising. Again, it was feature rich, for the level of offering that it was. And I think that was a bit of the hallmark of the Marantz. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed that. I think they're stellar units, and I think going through this list right now in particular shows why they're so highly sought after. They really do have a lot of great features, right balance, right sweet spot of the power range, and the looks to boot. On top of that. So if you've got one, let me know your thoughts. Any of the Marantz line, actually, because I think they're so similar in their characteristics. But let me know what your experience is with Marantz, good or bad. And I appreciate you guys dialing in as usual. And if you want to keep up with the next reviews, subscribe and hit that notification button if you want to, be aware that I've released a new video. I've got some things coming down the pipe here. If there's something you have seen in my collection, if I don't have it, I can't do a review of it. Sometimes I get a request for things I don't own. But if there's something you've seen that I own, let me know if you'd like to see it sooner or later. I think up next, I've got some speakers that I'm going to do, and I am sort of getting ready to do my first set of separates, amp, preamp. So kind of getting ready for that. Anyway, thanks again, and we'll see you next time.